Ever wonder what your elected officials are really up to?
Hmm.
This is your all-access pass
Okay.
to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors July meetings.
Yeah.
And trust me,
Yeah.
it's juicier than you think. Talking about the actual decisions being made.
Yeah.
About your money, your neighborhood, and even a certain celebrity shout out.
And while these meeting minutes might seem dry at first glance,
right,
they offer a fascinating look at the machinery of city government.
Okay.
We're talking about who's proposing what, who's voting for or against it, and the often unspoken dynamics at play.
Exactly. It's like a backstage pass to how policy gets made.
Yeah.
So to kick off our July saga,
okay,
let's rewind to the meeting on July 2nd.
Right.
Right off the bat, we see Supervisor Stefani was absent.
Twice. 2 meetings in a row, actually.
Really?
Which makes you wonder.
It's not necessarily unusual for supervisors to miss a meeting.
Right.
But 2 in a row does make you wonder if there's something more to it.
It does.
Is it a personal issue?
Maybe.
A strategic move?
Perhaps.
We might never know for sure.
Right.
But it highlights the importance of showing up in these meetings.
Yes.
Especially when critical votes are happening.
Absolutely.
Speaking of critical votes,
this
meeting was a whirlwind of budget approvals, ordinances,
right,
and even a very interesting grant for Planned Parenthood.
Right. This grant, totaling over $456,000, is specifically earmarked for security enhancements.
So it's indicative of a larger trend, unfortunately.
Certainly it is.
Of increased security concerns for healthcare providers.
Yes.
Particularly those offering reproductive health services.
Yes, particularly.
This grant reflects a commitment from the city to ensure the safety of both patients and staff.
Right, and that's really crucial.
It's a sobering reminder that these budget allocations aren't just numbers on a page.
No, they're not.
They reflect real-world issues impacting people's lives.
They do. They really do.
And on that note,
this
meeting also delved into another hot-button issue here in San Francisco.
Let's hear it.
Sidewalk vendors.
This has been an ongoing debate in the city for years.
It have.
With concerns about balancing support for small businesses.
Right.
With maintaining order on the sidewalks.
Right.
This meeting saw the board attempting to clarify permit requirements and streamline enforcement.
So it's a complex issue with no easy solutions.
It really is.
And these minutes show us that it's far from resolved.
It's far from over.
And because no deep dive is complete without a little local flavor.
I like it.
The July 2nd meeting included a fascinating ordinance about...
Tell me more.
Wait for it.
A tree.
Not just any tree, though.
What kind of tree are we talking about?
This coast redwood at 4 Montclair Terrace earned the prestigious designation of landmark, reflecting the city's dedication to preserving its natural heritage.
So, while the board is grappling with massive issues like housing and budgets, they're also taking the time to recognize the value of a majestic tree.
That's right.
I kind of love that.
It's a good reminder that city governance operates on multiple levels.
It does. From the grand scale down to the hyperlocal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward to the meeting on July 9th.
Okay, July 9th.
Where things really started heating up. Remember Supervisor Stefani's absence?
How could I forget?
Well, she's still MIA for this one.
Wow, okay.
But the real drama unfolded when Mayor Breed herself stepped into the lion's den to tackle a topic that's been causing quite a stir, rent control.
This was particularly timely given the recent Supreme Court ruling on the Grants Pass case, which dealt with restrictions on homeless encampments. The Costa-Hawkins Act, which limits the scope of rent control in California, has been a point of contention in San Francisco for years.
It has.
Supervisor Preston used this opportunity to directly challenge the mayor on her stance.
And for those who aren't familiar with Costa-Hawkins, it essentially prevents cities from expanding rent control measures. Which, as you can imagine, has significant implications for a city grappling with an affordability crisis like San Francisco.
Precisely. And the mayor, while expressing support for the idea of rent control, stopped short of fully endorsing the Justice for Renters Act, which seeks to repeal Costa-Hawkins, stating she needed further review.
Sounds like a bit of a political dance, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Trying to appease both sides without taking a firm stance.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this back and forth highlights the inherent tension that exists in cities like San Francisco, where you have a large renter population advocating for affordability and concerns about potential overregulation stifling new development.
Right, right.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah.
And this tension was palpable later in the meeting when the board actually voted on a resolution supporting the Justice for Renters Act.
Right. This resolution, while non-binding, was essentially a symbolic gesture of support for expanding rent control.
I see.
And while it did pass, it wasn't without its detractors.
Oh, spill the tea.
Supervisors Dorsey and Engardio, both appointed by the mayor, voted against the resolution.
Wow.
This public dissent, especially from members of the mayor's own party,
it's pretty huge.
Speaks volumes about the deep divisions surrounding this issue.
It seems like every decision, it really does.
Even a symbolic one becomes a battleground in the fight for the future of affordable housing in San Francisco.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, no.
We'll explore more housing controversies in a bit. But first...
Remember that feeling you get when you stumble upon a hidden gem while traveling?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tucked away in these July 9th meeting minutes is a little nugget of heartwarming news.
It seems San Francisco decided to show some love to one of its own musical legends.
No, really?
Linda Ronstadt.
Oh, wow.
Supervisor Chan presented her with a certificate of honor.
How nice.
Recognizing her iconic career and long-standing commitment to social justice.
It's a good reminder that even amidst the serious business of governing, there's always time to celebrate art and the people who make our city vibrant. It's very important.
It is.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those heavier topics.
Right.
We're talking about housing before the break.
Right.
And it seems like this theme just kept popping up throughout July.
Absolutely. Remember the Adante Hotel?
The Adante Hotel, yeah.
That seemingly straightforward agreement to house homeless individuals sparked some heated debate.
Right, because who doesn't love a good hotel controversy?
Exactly.
What was the sticking point here?
Well, the agreement itself was to amend an existing contract with Sayana Corporation, ultimately costing the city over $20 million to utilize the Adante for homeless services.
Wow.
Supervisor Mandelman, however, voiced his opposition in the committee meeting.
He did.
Now, the minutes don't delve into his specific reasons, but it's worth noting that this kind of pushback often arises when balancing the urgent need for housing solutions with concerns from existing residents.
It's a delicate dance, for sure.
It really is.
And speaking of delicate dances,
okay,
let's revisit that massive Stonestown development project.
Okay, the Stonestown development project.
With Supervisor Engardio recusing himself.
Right.
Did this meeting shed any more light on the controversy?
Even without Engardio's vote.
Yeah.
The Stonestown project, with its plans for new housing, open spaces, and more, clearly struck a nerve.
I see.
Some supervisors voiced concerns about the potential strain on traffic and existing parking, while others focused on the need for more truly affordable housing units within the development.
Which, in a city struggling with affordability as much as San Francisco, is understandable.
It is.
Did these concerns derail the project, though?
Not entirely.
Okay.
The board ultimately approved both the development agreement and the resolution to establish an enhanced infrastructure financing district for the project.
Okay, can we unpack that a little bit?
Of course.
What does that mean?
Enhanced infrastructure financing district.
Yeah, it sounds a little technical.
It does. In simple terms, it allows the city to borrow money for infrastructure improvements related to the project. And then repay those loans using future property tax revenue generated by the development itself.
Oh, I see.
It's a complex financing tool, but often used for large-scale projects like this.
Interesting. So while the project is moving forward, it's clear that concerns about its impact, especially on affordability, aren't going away anytime soon.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of things that are ongoing,
okay,
let's circle back to that quirky transient occupancy tax exemption we discussed earlier.
Oh, yes.
Any updates on whether budget travelers will be getting a break?
The ordinance did pass its first reading on July 2nd.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that it still requires a second reading before it can officially become law.
Right.
So while it's a step closer,
right.
there's still a possibility of amendments or even a complete reversal.
Wow. So it's not a done deal.
Not yet.
Okay.
This is a great example of why following these meeting minutes isn't just about the headlines.
Right.
It's about understanding the entire legislative process.
So you really have to follow it all the way through.
Exactly.
It's like watching a slow-motion political thriller unfold.
It is.
You never know what twist or turn might be coming next.
Exactly. You never know.
And on that note,
okay,
there was one other item from the July 9th meeting that I found particularly interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
The Public Utilities Commission's Green Infrastructure Grant Program.
Okay. Break that down for us.
Yes. What is that?
Essentially, this program funds environmentally friendly infrastructure projects across the city.
Okay.
Things like green roofs, which help with insulation and reduce stormwater runoff.
Okay.
Permeable pavements that allow rainwater to seep into the ground.
Oh, very cool.
And more.
I love it.
The ordinance discussed in this meeting sought to extend the general manager's authority to enter into grant agreements for up to 20 years after a project's completion.
Wow, so they're really making a commitment.
They are. It signifies a commitment to sustainability beyond just the initial construction phase.
This is not just a one and done.
No, not at all. By ensuring ongoing maintenance and support for these projects.
Right.
The city is making a statement about its dedication to environmental stewardship for decades to come.
I like it. It's not just about ticking a box, but about making sure these projects actually deliver on their promises.
That's right.
Now, before we dive into the final chapter of our July saga, I have to ask.
Yes.
Are we starting to notice any recurring themes here?
What's fascinating to me is this constant balancing act that we see playing out in these meetings.
And talk about that.
Whether it's navigating the needs of unhoused individuals alongside the concerns of residents, finding ways to incentivize affordable housing while grappling with potential overregulation.
Right.
Or even allocating funds for both essential services and long-term sustainability goals.
Right.
It's clear that governing a city as complex and dynamic as San Francisco involves constant negotiation and compromise.
Yeah, it's like trying to solve a giant puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape.
Exactly.
And with that thought-provoking image in mind, let's move on to our final installment.
All right.
Where we unpack the July 16th meeting. Including that eyebrow-raising reallocation of funds within the police department.
Let's do it.
Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yes.
We're wrapping up our July adventure. Through the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting minutes.
All right.
And trust me, we've saved some of the most interesting bits for last.
It's been fascinating to see how these seemingly disparate topics we've discussed, housing, the environment, even celebrating a music legend, all weave together to paint a picture of the complex tapestry that is city governance.
Like we've been piecing together a giant jigsaw puzzle.
I like it.
And now we're getting to that final, satisfying click as we uncover the last few pieces.
I'm ready.
Speaking of which,
let's
talk about the July 16th meeting.
July 16th.
And that intriguing reallocation of funds within the police department.
Police department.
What's the story with file not 240609?
This ordinance, which ultimately shifted over $6.8 million within the police and sheriff's department budgets, certainly raised some eyebrows. The funds were deappropriated from line items like salaries, equipment, and materials, and then reallocated to cover.
What was it for?
Wait for it. Overtime pay.
So we're talking about a significant chunk of change being moved around.
We are.
That definitely warrants a closer look.
It does.
What's the rationale behind this shift?
The minutes themselves are quite vague.
Oh, really?
Citing only projected increases in overtime as the reason.
Well, that's not very helpful.
It's not. It raises more questions than it answers.
It really does.
Is this due to an increase in crime rates?
Maybe.
Are there staffing shortages within the departments?
Right.
Or perhaps there's an upcoming event requiring a larger security presence.
It's like a financial mystery.
Right.
And it highlights how these seemingly dry budget discussions can actually reveal a lot about a city's priorities and potential challenges.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So did this ordinance sail through without any pushback?
Not exactly. The ordinance did eventually get recommended for approval, but not before facing scrutiny from the Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Oh, wow.
This suggests that even within the board itself, there were concerns about the long-term implications of relying so heavily especially on overtime pay.
Right, because while overtime can be a useful tool in the short term,
it can
become incredibly costly and potentially unsustainable in the long run.
Exactly.
Not to mention the potential for burnout among officers who are constantly working overtime.
Burnout is a really concern.
It is.
Right.
This situation underscores that delicate balance that cities constantly face, addressing immediate needs while also planning for the future.
It's a tough one.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that budget decisions are rarely simple.
They're not.
They often involve trade-offs and difficult choices with long-lasting repercussions.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've successfully mined these July meeting minutes for all the insight and intrigue they hold.
We really have.
We've journeyed through heated debates.
We have.
Surprising discoveries.
Oh, yeah.
And even a little celebrity appreciation along the way.
Of course.
We saw it all this month.
We did.
And it's just July. Who knows what August is going to bring?
Right. I can't wait to find out.
Me too. But for now, from the San Francisco Board of Supervisors July meetings.
That's right.
This has been The Deep Dive.
See you next time.